Welcome to the Jake Fletcher Show. Super excited for this interview today. I have a fellow musician and turned real estate agent on the show today, guys. His name is Nicolas Dobbratz, and he is of multiple different bands. One that you guys might know most likely is Of Montreal, which is a really popular pop band, right? You guys were pop music, or are pop music considered?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
all the pop, yeah.
Poppin'. So, so Of Montreal, Yip Deceiver, and Sugar and Gold. He's a songwriter, performer, producer. He plays the guitar, bass, keys, synthesizer, percussion, and vocals. And now he's with Keller Williams Green Hills in Nashville. So welcome to the show, Dobby, as he is called by everybody. Of course,
Yeah, man.
Dobby comes
like
from your last name.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
It stuck. It became the nickname that stuck in my life. Yeah, most people call me Dobby now, but that started when I moved to Georgia about 10 years ago, or something like that. Yeah.
And how did you feel when you first saw like Harry Potter movie or read the book and there was a character named Dobby?
Well, I was aware of the character before I got the nickname.
Okay.
And so, I never delved real deep into the series of novels, but I was, like I said, I was aware of Dobby, and yeah, I guess over time, I started to find the the link or the similarities to that character, the parallels in my life. But in the beginning, I think it was just about my last name. Yeah.
He's a dope character. I mean, everybody loves a good underdog character. And then when he gets freed from, I think Harry gives him a sock or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's one of the greatest feel-good moments of that entire series, you know?
Right. So I'm just trying to live that moment in every moment of my life. That's what it is.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, so
actually,
the reason, go ahead.
Oh, just, I used to tour with in the project Yip Deceiver. It was, for a while, it was just two of us. It was Davey and I, and people would often, when they found out my name was Dobby, because he would introduce me and everything, and people would always ask if he gave me a sock, and we were reminded of that constantly.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, we were introduced by mutual friends, Smurfio and Kusi of Afro Beta. And you and I just recently met over the phone. Kusi is like the ultimate linker upper.
Right. Yeah.
And she's just, both of them are two of the most amazing, cool, talented, all of the positive attributes, people that I've ever known. And so when she was like, hey, you should meet my friend and you guys should link up, maybe do some real estate together sometime, I was like, awesome. Sounds great. So we hit up a little phone conversation, and I already kind of had it in my head, but after talking to you, it confirmed it that this podcast would be a good idea to kind of share our experiences of being touring musicians and transferring into the world of real estate, because I know I've seen other people who have done it, who have considered it, who are considering it, making that jump from music to real estate, or some type of creative artistic career into the world of real estate overall. And I think it was very obvious to me that there's a story to be told there, and that there are some people who could probably benefit from hearing from two people who have done it. We've both been in real estate for almost the same amount of time, which was interesting as well. And you're in Nashville. You lived in Athens, Georgia. I'm from Atlanta. Now I'm in Miami. So we've got like the whole Southeast covered. And we both used to tour all around the country. You guys toured internationally with Of Montreal, right?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
I think we were intending to go to Asia again this summer, but obviously that's not happening. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not a good time to travel anywhere for sure. So
Right.
I wanted to ask, from reading the of Montreal Wikipedia page, I saw that the name came from allegedly a failed romance of a woman in Montreal with the founder, Kevin Barnes. Is
Mm-hmm.
that true? And have you ever met that woman?
I've never met that woman, and I'm answering the questions in reverse. Is it true? It's true that has been said and repeated, and I believe that it came from Kevin. As far as me verifying that I wasn't there, so I can't say.
I had to ask though. I was just curious. So what?
Yeah.
How did you and Afro Beta link up?
Well, through of Montreal, I guess we played together in Miami,
Okay.
and so it's one of those instant hit it off with people, and like you said, Kusi becomes the ultimate. You have these people in every area that you travel to, which are kind of like your people that you go to, and
Mm-hmm.
they're my people in Miami for the music thing, because like they ended up doing a really cool remix of a track that Yip Deceiver had, and then when they came to LA for a little while, I was living there, I think, at the time, and so I went and saw them play at downtown, and I got on stage and did a song with them. So we've just like had a really cool musical relationship. Yeah, and great people, obviously. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
through the shows, I guess, is how we met.
Awesome. Well, shout out to Tony and Kusi, Afro Beta. I'll drop their links in the description so you guys can check out their music, and of course, I'll drop Dobby's links as well. Um, let's talk about music for a second. Who and or what are your musical influences, and do you have a artistic philosophy?
Well, I mean, I guess the only thing I can say about my influences are just what the progression of my musical, um, my musicological dive in my life. Started probably like the first music that I really was inspired by was like rap music and breakdance kind of shit in the 80s, because I grew up in DC, and that was a thing that was popular when I was a kid. You kind of had to have your breakdance crew, wherever you lived. And
Right.
from there, my brother really got me into DC punk music, and because he was a little bit older, it's that typical story where he met some cool kids at school, and they hipped us to like the all ages shows in DC, and I got into punk music. So eventually, sort of like the scene that created Fugazi and stuff like that, and on was kind of my first real like musical passion, I think. And then from there, I think in the long run, it's somewhere between, kind of like, Bo Diddley, Kid Creole and the Coconuts, and Kraftwerk or whatever. It's kind of like, if I had to hit like some really different points that are influences for me, those are some things that are out there. As far as a philosophy, I don't think I have a known philosophy to myself, except for that over time, I think in making music, I've just decided that being playful and humorous with your performance is kind of, to me, is a link to longevity and personal enjoyment and success. So that's about all I could say about that.
That's what's up. I like that a lot. I mean, it's a good lesson to learn that a lot of people might take for granted, I feel, because it's such an industry, music, that it'll grind you down if you're not having fun while you're doing it and enjoying it, and, you know, having fun with the performances, like you said, being playful with it. And definitely look at people like Willie Nelson. The dude's like 180 years old and he's still touring and seems to have fun and enjoy every moment of it, you know? So,
Right.
and the Rolling
Fun.
Stones, you know, another one. I think that add Robert Plant. There's a ton of these guys who've been doing it forever, and there's got to be something to that longevity. And I think that enjoying it, having fun, being playful about it, like you said, has a big role for sure.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. And those are good examples, you know?
Yeah. What was the tipping point for you that catalyzed your career change into real estate?
Wow. Tipping point.
Or it could be series of tipping points, you know?
Yeah. It's, maybe I'll figure it out by going back, but I mean, it's definitely something that I had toyed with and thought about for a while before I actually made the move myself. You know, people will tell you'd be good at that, and you probably got that from people, and you probably still do get that when you talk to someone and tell them what profession you're in. They probably say, oh, you know, you'll do great at that because you know, you're a personable person, you're you know how to talk to people or whatever. So I had kind of gotten that encouragement specifically from a good friend when I was living in Berkeley, Oakland area, about, you know, getting into real estate and as a career that I could sort of have at the same time as what I already do, and not completely end one thing and go into the next. And I think ultimately that's what I wouldn't say was a tipping point, but it was what allowed me to transition, was having time off in between tours and just sort of deciding, like, I didn't want to always be waiting for the next tour or whatever. And the prospect of something new was very exciting. And I think the content of the work is enjoyable. And the more I learn, the more I kind of understand how to enjoy it more, you know, so. Yeah.
So it sounds like somebody kind of sparked a thought in your mind that, hey, here's something you could add to your tool belt, to your arsenal of ways to pay your bills and ways to expand yourself as a person and as a professional. And that spark kind of grew over time, and eventually you ended up taking the leap itself.
Yeah, exactly. And the leap really happened, you know, when I moved to Tennessee. So that was, I think, you know, maybe if I was to pinpoint the tipping point, it was kind of like being in a new environment, a new city. At this point in my life, it allowed me to see myself in a new light, from a different perspective, and then sort of get rid of any hangups or things that I was holding on to, insecurities about not doing it. And that's sort of been a theme in my life, I think, you know, like the ability to reimagine yourself is powerful when you're trying to make decisions in your life. So that was one of those times, I think, where it really was about everything feeling new. And so why not just throw something else in new too? Because, you know, get it all started here.
Absolutely.
It's been fun that way, because I really spent more time in California than anywhere in my life. And actually I'm getting licensed there, and that's going to be really exciting. But I chose a new city to start this profession in, which is a setback in some ways, and nobody will deny that. But it's also, you know, created some interesting challenges and you know, forced me into really diving in and learning a lot, which is good, I think.
Yeah. I agree with the statement you made about reimagining yourself and how powerful that is. And I think that takes a lot of courage, because we live in a world where it's so easy to just get comfortable with whatever it is that you're doing and just figure out a way. It's easier to figure out a way to sustain than it is to figure out a way to add on and to grow. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I think that reimagining process is one of the best ways to grow, because you're literally having a completely open mind about any possibilities that you might be able to do. And you're taking that open-minded, receiving sort of mindset of like, okay, come at me, universe. Like, let's just whatever is the right path, it will unfold. And it's because I'm willing to receive that message or receive that new path,
Mm-hmm.
and it's such a powerful it's a powerful mindset to have that I think a lot of people would benefit from, because I don't see it in a lot of people. I see most people are just, and there's a lot of reasons why. If you have a family, you got to pay the bills, you got to take care of your kids, you take care of a sick family member or something like that. 100%, it's a lot more difficult to do that reimagining process, take the leap into a new career. But there are other ways I think you can, even in those type of circumstances, reimagine not just your career, but your relationships with people, the way that you interact with people on a daily basis. I mean, every day is a new, fresh start to reimagine yourself in a sense.
Right.
So
sure,
I'm curious,
sure.
Was there any competing potential careers that were options before you kind of decided on real estate, or was it like real estate is the jam?
Well, I always wanted to be a private investigator. But that, there's definitely was less encouragement about that one. Let's put it that way.
That's interesting.
I did talk to someone here about it who could maybe, help me get in the work. But in the end, I think I like reading PI stories more than I probably would enjoy the work itself, which is, at this point, I don't know, it's probably a lot of long hours, and maybe there isn't no work. I don't know.
I have to imagine it's probably less flexible time-wise than real estate. Yeah.
So there was that. And, I had thought about some type of, I guess like psychotherapy certification at some point. But again, I think, when you imagine the idea of something, and then when you sort of put yourself in the place of doing it, sometimes it feels different. So in the end, I guess real estate won over psychotherapy and private investigators, which could all sort of work together in a way,
Yeah.
Because I think that, it actually brings up an interesting thing about real estate and like our work is, there is an element of psychotherapy to it. You're dealing, well, it depends. I mean, if you're dealing with residential, then you're dealing with people's homes. That's very emotional. There's a lot of psychology that goes into the process, as you know. If you're looking at properties and you're doing the work that you need to do to find out about everything, which is what you have to do as an agent, you are doing sort of that private investigator work in a way. So I like to think that real estate has the best parts of PI and psychotherapy all rolled into something that's a little bit more fun.
Yeah, and probably a little more rewarding financially, I would think.
There you go.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're glad that you chose real estate.
Absolutely, because it satisfies all those those needs, and like you said, is a little bit more potentially rewarding. You know, it's unlimited as far as its rewards. Let's face it. You know, which is, what do you want to do? How much do you want to work? And I guess everyone figures that out for themselves. You know.
What was the reaction from your bandmates when you told them that you were going to transition into being a full-time real estate agent?
Well, you know, basically you just end up talking about houses a lot more with your bandmates, you know, because at this point, I'm not going to lie. Like, there's no one like, well, whatever. It doesn't matter about age, but like most of the people that I tour with, are at that point where they're either thinking about buying a home, or they've purchased one recently, or they purchased one a while ago and are going to sell it. So there's stuff to talk about with them. So that was one reaction. The other one is just sort of the basic making fun of you for being, well, I play it up a little bit, you know, like every time I'd come back to another tour, try and look a little bit nicer so that people are like, oh, you're doing well, you know. So that is sort of an ongoing joke, you know, I guess. I mean, I guess it's not really a joke, but we were playing it up a little bit, I think, you know. Well, because, you know, as a real estate agent, to some people these days it's a lot different because there's lots of hip people doing everything, but like it might have a little bit of a stigma of, you know, being kind of like used car salesman vibe or something like that, you know. I don't know. My dad sold cars, so
did mine. That's
crazy.
Really?
Yeah. Hondas mostly in the 80s.
Yeah, my dad was they had a used car sales, two different lots in Atlanta.
Okay. Well,
if you ever heard of the Big Chicken, it's like a KFC restaurant, the Big Red Chicken. It was their main lot was right behind that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I
so
grew
you know what I'm talking about then, you know? And I say that with the utmost respect, like the used car salesman, you know, that's the work. It's a very American story, you know, and but you know, there is, like I said, there is stigma attached to salespeople or whatever. So when as going from a creative person into sales, automatically people are gonna kind of make fun of you a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you got to be ready for that, and that's why like playing along with it to me works, because it's sort of like, you know, ultimately it's something that we get to share together. And like I said, we get to talk about stuff that maybe we didn't talk about before, but you know, how about you? I mean, what was the reaction from your creative people, you know?
It was a little bit of overlap, but also a little bit different for us. We've had the same like members, the same cast, minus one dude who we had to get rid of but that's a whole nother book in and of itself.
Yeah.
We had the same cast of characters for a long time. There was a whole lore surrounding the band, you know, and you and I talked about this a little bit on our first phone call that we talked about the dynamic that both of us played in the group. And we were both of us were the kind of the business guy in charge of the certain specific business elements of the organization. And so it was a little more of a shock because within me personally, I was kind of dealing with the internal dilemma of what do I want to do to make sure that I'm happy going forward in the future and that I'm able to not be so stressed about finances, you know, because like you mentioned, you know, you didn't want to be always waiting for the next tour. For people listening who maybe have not been in a band before, you make all your money on shows and touring. Yeah. You don't know, but you're not making very much money from Spotify and Apple Music. And like, I mean, album sales it's like a little sprinkle on top of the main brunt of your income as a musician.
Yeah.
merch is another big one. So you're making your money from merch and from touring and shows, which you sell most of your merch at shows. So they kind of go hand in hand. So, we would go and tour, and I'd be doing great for a couple months after the tour. And then it was like, I was teaching music on the side, not on the side. That was my main source of income throughout the year. There were times when it would be less than the touring, times it would be more, but I would come back, be okay for a couple months, then have to get my private music clients back up before I went broke, and it was just this never ending cycle of like, man, when do I break through? When am I going to be able to buy a home, buy investment properties? Because even before I considered real estate as a career, I've always been very much into investment real estate, just because it's something that my parents have been into since I was a younger kid. And I always saw that as like, man, that's the way to freedom is to own income properties. And so I had that example. And so going back to that internal dilemma, it was like, here's this thing that I'm super passionate about. And my phone's talking to me. Here's this thing that I'm super passionate about and that I've dedicated my life to, blood, sweat, tears, the whole nine. And then on the other hand is the question of, am I truly happy? And it came down to a question of, okay, well, I am happy performing and making music, but how happy am I, quantifying it. And because of all the external stressors, and also the stress, honestly, of being that business guy, I realized, dude, I'm really only happy when I'm like on stage for the most part.
Right. Yeah.
And now looking back on it, I think of other times that I'm like, yeah, that was cool. Like some of the times I look back on, I guess you could say nostalgically, although I'm not really a very nostalgic person, is just driving, just being on the road with the crew and just like blasting tunes, being in a new part of the country. And you don't think about it in the moment, but those are clutch, like A1 times,
Yeah.
So, but at the time when I was making this decision, I was like, dude, I'm really only like ecstatic when I'm on stage. And as soon as I get off stage, I got to go man the merch booth, and it was like, okay, so what can I do to make some money and be happy and be able to sustain myself? So I studied music business at went to go try to find a music business job. It's not really a place. Miami's not the city for music business unless you're in Latin music. I tried to get some Latin music jobs. I actually love Latin music. I love like a lot of the pop Latin music right now, but I was losing out on these jobs, probably because I'm not fully fluent in Spanish, which I'm somewhat fluent, but like I'm not idiomatically fluent where like I can just like I can with English. So at a certain point I was like, all right, I've applied and not been accepted to like half a dozen jobs that I'm way overqualified for. So if Miami's not a city for music business for me, what is it the city for? And what am I interested in? Well, I've always been interested in real estate, as I mentioned. So I was like, it just dawned on me one day. I literally was driving down the road. I remember where I was. I was on US 1 northbound, about to get on 95 north. And it just like clicked. It was like real estate. Obviously, my mom was a realtor. Both my parents have real estate holdings and things like that. When they retired, they put their money into real estate as an investment for themselves to provide them with passive income. And so, I always had that example, and Miami is a great city for it. And I'm genuinely interested in it and also interested in the investment side of it. So that's kind of like the context of like how I arrived at the decision. And so the reason I say all that is because it was, I think, somewhat of a surprise when I like dropped the bomb on my bandmates, because I was dealing with this internal thing. And like part of my, like the men in my family is not being very, expressive of our feelings. We bottle things up a lot, which I think a lot of men do. I'm trying to break that in my generation. It's gotten a little better from my dad and my granddad, and so forth. But I hadn't really told them like, hey guys, I'm considering doing this, because I was figuring out if I was actually going to pull the trigger or if I was just going to keep on grinding it out, you know? And then I realized, I came to that realization of, nah, I'm not going to really truly be able to be happy if I keep grinding it out and, you know, riding this hamster wheel that, you know, it doesn't have you know, the unlimited growth, like you mentioned in real estate. So when I dropped the bomb, so to speak, it was a little bit of like shock and awe. Now everybody understands. We're having a Zoom after we get off of our Zoom, and doing a digital hangout, you know, so
cool.
We're family, you know what I mean? But it was definitely a surprise, and there was mixed reactions from like, yeah, man, I can understand where you're coming from, to like, what do you mean, you know? Like, what are we going to do, you know? And it was tough, man. It really was. It was an emotional time for sure.
I understand.
But it's,
I can relate to that. You know, that wasn't how my transition was because of my relationship with the people I work with, but I have had very similar situations that were not directly related to career moves, but physical moves. And also, like, the first time I played for another band outside of my creative project was a big emotional move too, for the band that I was in. And I realized that too, so I can relate to that, because, you know, it's interesting how that stuff is, you know. And with bands, you're basically creating a family. You do a lot of, you know, you live together, you travel together, you become very close, you fight with these people, you love them, you go through all that stuff. And so even if you have all these reasons to stop doing it, there's still a little bit of like, you know, you still do love those people. I mean, hopefully you do, and not always. Sometimes people leave, and for good reason. An abusive family, but if you had a good musical family, then you know, it's always bittersweet, you know. But ultimately, I guess people are happy for you if you're happy.
Yeah, man, and times change, like people change, time keeps moving and people change, and that's the story of life, you know. It's the beautiful and tragic thing of life, you know. The change is constant, and you got to either ride the wave and use the inertia and momentum to your benefit, or you can crash against the rocks, you know. And if you're on that path to crash against the rocks, you can fight it as long as you want, but eventually you're headed for the rocks, you know. And it's important, I think, to realize which path you're on before it's, you know, too late, so to speak. Because I know a lot of people who are, you know, much older than you or I, who they resisted that and just continued on that path that they initially sought out on, and for whatever reason, stubbornness, ego, whatever it is, just stuck with something that really wasn't working for them as a person. Maybe it was working for them artistically, or it was working for their community, their little personal community. But for them as a human being, as an organism living on this planet, they might have had a better path to take, you know. And you don't like to see that, you know what I mean? You want to see people doing well and prospering, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think honestly that you you know, whatever transitions and transformations you have in your life, whether they be relationships or careers or both, you know, I don't think you never really leave them completely behind, in the sense that in the context of what we're talking about, you know, if you're talking about creative work into something like that's sales related, different career, whatever it may be, you know, I think that sometimes, and it doesn't have to be in this particular situation, but sometimes you when you make those leaps into transformations, your relationship with your prior existence, we'll call it, becomes you're able to create a more healthy relationship with that existence, and then maybe bring it back into your life in such a way where you can work with it and not feel oppressed by it, in the sense that when you get to an unhealthy crashing into the rock situation, it's often too late to go back and make that particular thing better for you because you have too many bad habits or whatever, setbacks. So giving it the space and allowing, sort of letting go of it really is what it is, letting go and taking the leap into whatever it is, the next thing, allows you to actually, keep a little bit of the best of that, what was happening, your life before, and bring it with you to the next phase, and hopefully circle back and enjoy it in a way that you really never were capable of doing before. And I find that I see that possibility with creative work. You're never going to really, if you like doing this stuff, you're never really going to ever stop completely thinking about it. And if you have friends that are creative, that you play music with and all that, then, eventually you're going to jump back into a project and just be natural, and it'll be fun. And that, like I said, is a more healthy approach sometimes. So it can create ultimately the results that you wanted in the very beginning. But that's the progression to getting there sometimes, is leaving it and come in and being able to come back to it. I mean, do you know what I mean? Or do you find that that's
100%.
true? Yeah.
I completely agree. I think that it takes some, if not all, of the pressure off when you step out of it for a second or however long, and it relieves that pressure. It allows you to spread your wings, and grow as a person. And then when you get back into doing whatever it is creatively, you don't have that monkey on your back or, whatever. Right. And you are much more liberated in your approach. Like in our instance of making music as a career, you're in the studio and you're trying to come up with like the best thing you've ever written as an artist, because every new thing you make has to be better than the last. Right. Yeah. And that's a tremendous amount of pressure in and of itself. Sure. And then compound that with the fact that, hey, not only does this have to be the best thing I've ever created, but it's also got to pay my rent and it's got to pay my, my utilities and my car and all your bills, and then, hey, if it's really good, I need it also to put some money in my savings account so that I can afford to have a family one day and things like that, So it's just a tremendous amount of pressure. And when you realize, okay, hey, I'm gonna ride this wave of momentum that I have of me being a prosperous and effective human being, and put that energy into something that's going to reward me more. And then you're, like you said, you're always going to have it a part of you. It's always a part of your story, and it's always going to continue to have its remnants left over in your character and your thought process, etc. Yeah. You're going to then, when you come back to doing anything creative, you're going to have that liberated spirit and that weight lifted off of you, which is going to instantly make you create better. Like when I finally, made the call of like, all right, I'm going into real estate. I also like produce music on my own, not to just more as a catharsis. I don't have any like solo projects that I've ever released or anything, but like the beats and music that I made right after that moment in time were some of the best stuff that I've ever personally made on my own, and I still go back and look at some of those beats, and maybe I'll one day put out a solo album, but I guarantee you one or two of those beats that came from that time period will be on that album if it ever comes out. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because they're just fire, because there's something you cannot put a quantitative or even qualitative analysis on that feeling of liberation, It's something that's beyond words, and it's something you can't even create or recreate. You can't fake it. It just is, it's like, it's as elusive as the notion of inspiration itself, so it's definitely a super interesting topic. And that's kind of a good transition too, because into what I was going to ask next is if you feel like there are any skills that you gained from the music industry that either transferred well into real estate or helped you to become a better realtor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the obvious one is that was what we were talking about before. Is you're sort of you're used to working and not getting paid at first. Which, I mean, obviously, like we said, there's limitless potential to real estate. However, when you start, you have to put in the work. Nobody gives you a paycheck the first week you're an agent. You know what I mean? Well, they might, but in my case, they didn't. So that's one thing that I carried with me that I think was an easy transition. I didn't really even think about it. I knew that it would be, I would have to put in the work in order to see the results. So that's something that I definitely learned over time with music. Other than that, I mean, also your troubleshooting and ability to handle logistics, like if you are that person on the road, I think carries over very well because you're interacting with lots of people. So you have to understand personalities. You got to be able to communicate clearly, and then also, take care of the logistics in order to get this thing across the line. So I think that's something that I got from music. And then specifically, I worked as a talent agent and still do for some artists, booking tours for other artists. And that type of representation, I think, was definitely something that prepared me for working on behalf of a client with another entity. And so those things probably are the main ones that transferred over for me. Was working without a paycheck, communicating with all types of people, and being able to handle logistics. And then the third one, what did I say?
Client representation as an agent.
Designated agency.
Yeah. That's interesting. Those are all excellent points and probably a little different than what I would have answered, which is interesting because we were in the same career and then moved to the same career. For me, the obvious ones that stand out are, well, definitely logistics. I would have definitely have, that's absolutely, I agree with that one and relate to that one for sure. I also feel like the confidence that you gain as a performer translates into the confidence that you need as a realtor and as any type of salesperson. Because if you don't have confidence, it's very obvious. And if you don't believe in yourself, who the hell is going to believe in you, to handle the biggest purchase of their life? Nobody's hiring the timid, shy, like, oh, well, I think I can get your house sold, no, you're out, on to the next. So the confidence for sure. I think that the paycheck one is hilarious. It's too relatable.
I mean, you're independent contractor, basically.
Yeah. And it kind of relates to another one I would say is like, yes, you're like, okay, we're not getting paid in this thing. We're not getting paid in this other thing. Cool. We're good. I'm used to this, I'm used to making it work. But also I feel like and this is maybe more for entrepreneurs in general, you have to be a self-starter. If you want to get paid, if you want to make any money, you have to be willing to do whatever you have to do in order to make sure that check lands. and it's a very similar story. I mean, that's the story of any type of commission based or sales based work, is you have to be willing to step up to the plate. You have to be willing to, and not just step up to the plate in terms of it's showtime, swing the bat, or strum the guitar, to use a musical analogy, but also step up to the plate on a day-to-day basis of, sticking to a schedule, waking up, doing the work to educate yourself, to improve the skill set that you have that you can offer to your clients. It's just like in music where, you go play a show and let's say you get paid $5,000, $10,000. You're not getting paid for the time that you were on stage necessarily. You're getting paid for all the practices and rehearsals and the time that it took to get that music product together, and all of that collective work from all the people that it took to make it happen is what you're getting paid for. Same thing in real estate. When you make a commission check, you're not just getting paid for doing that transaction. You're getting paid for the time it took to become an expert in your craft in order to make sure that that transaction even happened in the first place, which is thousands of hours of work, of real work, not just watching like HGTV and all of a sudden I'm a real estate expert. It's literally studying and pounding the books, or books, everything's digital now, but it really takes a tremendous amount of effort to get the skills and knowledge to do what it takes to see a transaction in real estate get from start to finish. And prospecting, let's not leave out one of the most essential pieces of the puzzle in terms of actually making business happen and generating business for yourself. You have to be willing to pick up the phone on a daily basis and follow up with those clients and all that stuff. So the tenacity of being an entrepreneur and saying, okay, hey guys, in the band context, we haven't put out an album in 6-7 months, and we haven't played a show in a month or two, and we haven't had any real income coming in other than like some little streaming royalty change. So we're going to go from this lull, so to speak, and we're going to create some new momentum and get this thing going, and the tenacity and just brazenness that takes, I think translates really well to real estate as well. Because if you can make money as an artist, trust me, you can make money in real estate. It might take a while, like you said, but good news, you're already used to it taking a while, so yeah. And then the last thing I would say that I think we also talked about the first time we talked was the herding of the cats. Like the herding cattle, but instead it's herding cats, because every single individual is an individual, whether you're in a band or you're in, like I have a situation right now where I have 5 separate sellers for one property, so, and they don't all get along. So there's a lot of that skill set of herding the cats that translates into real estate for sure. That's a serious skill right there.
Yeah. No, you're right. And there is something, there's always something that's going to surprise you too. I mean, I found in every deal, it's like, there's always something that you learn really, and every transaction that you do. And so your ability to pivot and work with people herding is crucial for sure. And I've probably been a cat herded, I've been in the herd before, and then I've been the herder, but it's good to know both sides of the picture.
Absolutely. So you were on a team before, on a real estate team, and then now you're solo, right?
Yes, that's true.
So what catalyzed your decision to join a team, and then why did you ultimately decide to go solo?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I got started, I was really just going very organic, like following the signs of, there's so much information and there's so many people, and I was lucky to meet a lot of nice people right away who were very encouraging. So, that may be the nature of the business, because a lot of friendly salespeople, but yeah, so I was following kind of like the signs of what my path was, trying to find my way into how this was going to work for me. And one of the first people I met who was very encouraging was my team leader, and he was super busy at the time, and I had mentioned, I'd be interested in working on the team because I honestly felt like I needed guidance in the beginning, and still do. Everyone does, but they were the first people I met that just really kind of encouraged me in the right way, and I felt were on the same level, even in context of what we're talking about, musicians, artists who had already made this transition, had become successful, and understood where I was coming from, and also 100% told me, like, don't worry about it. You can continue doing music if you want to. I mean, you should continue doing music is really what they said. And that felt good, so it was just I think it was an easy start for me, because I liked the people, and it appeared that, part of that confidence that we were talking about before, to me in the beginning, was feeling like someone had my back, As I started working, I realized that there's a certain level of the job that you have to do on your own, no matter what, and team or no team, we're a big network of people. Like, I could call you, you can call me, we can talk about things. If I had a question specifically that I thought you could answer, I would definitely reach out to you, and vice versa. And so, I was feeling like I needed that network in order to feel the confidence when I'm out there presenting myself and doing that work that we were talking about. And over time, I think that I just, I think what I realized is that people who are going to work with me are working with me because they like me, and that's pretty much what people tell you when you get started, is that the people who, people who are going to work with you are those who know you, like you, and trust you, at least when you're getting started. So I found that to be true. And therefore, I felt, when I transitioned, that I owed it to myself to just give myself the ability to see what it was like to do this as a solo agent, have 100% control over my presentation, even albeit, maybe it's less of a presentation branding kind of thing. I still feel that being yourself is your brand, whatever that is, And so in order for me to be 100% myself, I think in this business I needed to be solo, and that was what the transition was about. It really was absolutely nothing personal. It was nothing business related where I was disappointed or anything like that. It was just that moment for me where it became obvious. So yeah, and I talked to someone recently who said, yeah, I should have joined a team when I started. And I was like, when I started, I was kind of like, I had the opposite feeling, like maybe I should have just gone solo or whatever. And the truth is I think just however you jump in there, it's how you get started, and then eventually you find, whatever your niche is, and keep working at that. So that's pretty much that story.
Yeah. That's
How about
interesting.
you? I mean, you are a team, right? You are the team.
Well,
Is that correct?
I'm a solo agent, but I am in the process of building a team.
Yeah.
So I have the Fletcher group, which
Right.
as of right now, it's a one-person real estate team, which is me.
Right.
But I just created a new branch called Fletcher Group Media, and
Okay.
it's going to be the whole media side of things. And I have one person who's a close friend of mine who I've known throughout like my whole music career, who she's an incredible photographer. She's going to be, it's essentially an all-in-one, like one-stop shop for all types of real estate media. So
cool.
high quality photos, videos, drones, Matterport, 3D scanning, the whole 9, property videos and all that stuff. And then a wing of the Fletcher Group Media will also eventually will be intertwined with the content I create, like the podcasts and videos and stuff like that. So it's, but I've been solo since the start, and I kind of grappled with that decision of, man, do I join a team? Cause I actually was propositioned early on by someone who I really respect a lot, a fellow agent in my office who's really helped me a lot throughout my career so far. And he propositioned me with essentially starting a team with him. And I had to think about it really hard because it was a really attractive idea. And he has more, years in the business and experience and tons of things I can learn from him, et cetera. But I had entered the business with the intention to go solo, and I wanted to remain solo. And the reason was kind of twofold. First was that it was almost like I had to prove it to myself. Like a personal challenge, hey, you need to make it of your own volition. So you're going to be solo and figure this thing out, and then the second part of it was like more on the lines of wanting to just cut my teeth early and just like pull the Band-Aid off, get as good as I could, as quick as I could. I had heard stories of people who were on teams that kind of got pigeonholed into one role. Like they were the buyer's agent, or they did Y or Z. And I just didn't want that. I didn't want to lose time. I wanted to just fail hard and early and learn from that experience and be better quicker. Which I think it's worked out for me. I mean, I had a tough first year for sure. You know what I mean? But now things are better than ever and getting better every day. Like now my phone rings, I don't have to just call everyone, my phone will ring with new clients multiple times a day now. And it's like all of that is because of the work that I did up front as a solo agent, so and it's funny because like I had people in my family who were kind of pushing me into like, hey, why don't you join the team, do the team thing. And that way you'll at least be, making more money than you probably are as a solo agent. But it was never really about the percentages and the commission splits for me. Like, of course that I'm not, I can't lie and say that had no bearing whatsoever, but it was maybe like tertiary to the two things that I mentioned before of like, I needed to prove it to myself, and I wanted to just cut my teeth quick and hard, and not like waste my time. I don't say being on a team isn't a waste of time. That's how I perceived it at the time, was just like get as good as I could, as quick as I could, so that was kind of my philosophy, and I think it's worked out, and now, we still have a one-man real estate team, but Fletcher Group is 2 people and growing, So, yeah.
And in a way, that's where I am right now. I mean, I definitely think that I cut my teeth either way on my own. Being on a team, still you're just responsible for your own work. So, I mean, no one's going to literally hold your hand and do it. But yeah, so now I think I'm excited about exactly what you were talking about, which is, really what is your potential, and go out there and find out and get it out of the way. I mean, I think relatively either way, we're both young agents, so your future, you know, you'll probably see all kinds of things, and as long as you do it, we'll find new success and new ways to make it better for yourself. But like you said, get the hard stuff out of the way first.
Rip the Band-Aid off, man. I've always been a Band-Aid ripper. Always.
Yeah.
Like even down to the littlest things. Like when I wake up in the morning, boom, as soon as my alarm goes off, I'm up, because I don't want to sit there and like, do I want to get up? It's always worse when you like languish in that moment of, do I do it or not? It's better to just do it. And then after you're done with it, you're like, thank God I did it. Going for a run, same, you know, or working out, same thing. It always sucks beforehand. And then while you're doing it, it's like, all right, I'm doing it, you know? And then afterwards you're like, thank God I did it. You know, you always feel better after you rip the Band-Aid off. So that's one of my thought processes on that. What, you're still actively writing and recording music, right?
Yeah.
And with Of Montreal, or because you said that you guys had a tour you were going to be going on?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, the music that I write is for other projects.
Okay.
Of Montreal is, you know, I'm one of the live band members, so my relationship with the project is performance. We had a tour scheduled for the fall that I think is, you know, sort of getting kicked down the road depending on how things go, because obviously venues haven't figured out how to make this work, and we're trying to, you know, I talked to our booking agent recently and trying to figure out, you know, whether some of these venues are even going to be around by the time they're able to have shows. So there's that whole thing. But yeah, I am working on another Sugar and Gold record right now, which has been in the works for probably a couple of years now, very sort of casually. We go back to California and do some recording sessions, and then Philip and I, the other songwriter, would sort of take a break and then come back and do it again. And so that's sort of wrapping up this year. I'm helping Ruby out with her new record right now at home, so that's been fun. And then you know, I guess every sort of project that I have has an ongoing recording element to it. So yeah, that's mostly what's going on, is kind of like trying to finish up some new albums for all the projects, and hopefully get them out now that we have a little bit more downtime with less travel, you know?
Yeah. So what is in like a really busy real estate day, are you still able to fit in some guitar time or production work, or are there some days that you go without music in terms of playing? Yeah.
Definitely days I go without music.
Yeah, same.
I mean, yeah, I think a real intense day, there's nothing else, you know, I mean, yeah, it depends what point you are in your transaction or your deal, but like, when you need to be there, you got to be there. And so those intense days typically aren't creative days for me in that sense. But I do find a balance where I'm able to kind of like do both, hit the work on both ends, when neither one of them is intensely demanding. When one of them is really demanding, then it could take over, you know. But if I'm in a real estate transaction, then it's kind of like, you know, there's certain times where you have to be very, very aware of what's going on at every moment and be available. So those days are not guitar days for me now.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that early in the morning is the best time for me to get in some like creative time. Like sometimes I'll work it into my schedule. I'll just do like 15 to 30 minutes after I do my workout routine in the morning, just play some guitar or work on a beat that I was working on the other day or whatever, something like that. And if I wait too long in the day, it doesn't happen, you know, because I just get consumed by working. Do you have like a certain time of the day that you feel like it fits in better?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the early hours are priceless right now, you know. I also we're doing some gardening over here right now. So first thing I do is I get up and I usually hit the garden and kind of like do whatever, you know, do an hour of just like whatever needs to be done there. It gets demanding at this time of year because everything's growing really fast. And then I could hit a little bit of like recently hit a little bit of like production work early in the morning in this kind of quiet time before the phone calls start. And I think get some quality work done because it's peaceful and there's you know, you kind of know you have a limitation of time, so you're kind of like, well, let's just get something done here. So yeah, early and late, I guess, are kind of the windows for that type of stuff right now. And I do bike rides early in the morning as well on some days, so that can be a priority.
That's what's up. Do you have a favorite show or music festival that you've ever played?
I think, you know, Primavera in Barcelona is a great festival that we played. I don't remember what year now, but the year that we did that, you know, it's a spring festival in Barcelona, was probably one of the funnest gigs because, you know, there was all these other great artists playing, and it's a fun weekend or week in Barcelona. I think that Pulp played that year, and you know, we were on the same stage with like Nick Cave and Flaming Lips and all this kind of stuff. So it was a really fun festival. I'd say that was one of my memories that I really keep with me.
That's dope. How about crazy tour stories?
Well,
any specific ones jump out?
Yeah, I mean, my earliest traumatic tour experience was being deported basically back to the U.S. from Manchester, UK.
Oh, no.
When I was starting a tour, I hadn't even gotten there yet. So I had left one tour here in the States with my band, Sugar and Gold, and was going to play some European shows with a band called Rubies that I had joined at that time. They were from California, but were doing a lot of work in Northern Europe. And I flew into Manchester and got detained and put in immigration jail, and then sent back to San Francisco the next day, which had a layover in Chicago. And I got off the plane in Chicago and instantly started making phone calls. Ended up talking, and I hadn't slept for 3 days, and ended up talking to the promoter in Berlin who was doing our next shows, because I was at, like, the UK thing was over for me. They weren't going to let me into the country because I didn't have a visa, and they found out that I was playing shows by looking at my name on the internet and seeing, you know, the dates. So it didn't really matter what I said, but yeah, ended up talking to the promoter in Berlin, and then he told me that there was a flight to Frankfurt on Air India that was leaving in an hour, and if I went over to, this is in Chicago, if I went over to the counter, I could probably buy a ticket and get on and come back to Germany the next day. So I went from Dallas, Texas to Manchester, woke up, you know, over an overnight flight, woke up and went to jail, went to immigration jail. And I was like the only American dude there. It was mostly Iraqi guys and North African dudes who were like, they were like, "What are you doing here, man? Like, you're American." And I was like, I don't. So they thought I was funny, but yeah. So 24 hours later, they just escort you to a plane and give you these, you know, show the papers to the pilot. your return papers, you know, and they put this real big black stamp in your passport that was really annoying for years to come, because anytime someone saw it, they would have to ask me what it was about. Yeah, and then flew to Chicago, and then flew back to Frankfurt, and then ended up having one of the best times in Berlin after that, because I was waiting for my band who was doing the UK shows without me. I was waiting in Germany because Germany welcomed me, and met all of these great people that week that ended up being my best friends in Berlin till this day. When we were talking originally, you know, about Afro Beta and Miami, those people, you know, the ones that you connect with and you always go back to when you're visiting an area or when you need to know anything or handle anything in their location, those people I met that week. So it was you know, sort of just a crazy travel experience. I don't know if that's a tour story.
It overlaps. I think it qualifies. That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is pretty wild, man. That must have been
that's
very
the obvious one for me.
Yeah, that must have been very frustrating and scary, and then I guess ultimately relieving.
Well, yeah, it was a moment where I had to make a decision whether I really wanted to do this, you know, because the truth is that like when I flew back from Manchester and got off in Chicago, that was my decision that I was going back. But until then, I was half sort of like, maybe I should just go back to San Francisco and just call it quits. You know what I mean? Like, I failed at doing this job, you know, like maybe this is the universe telling me that I shouldn't do this anymore and that I should just go home, you know? But that moment where I got off the plane and I literally had $300, and that flight back to Frankfurt was $300. I spent all my money, like all of my money, on this flight to go back. And when I got there, the promoter bought me a train ticket online so that I could go from Frankfurt to Berlin. And I arrived in Berlin with nothing, you know, and they took such good care of me. And that was a true test of like the road and your allies in other places, and how you know, they really are there. We are there for each other, this network around the world. And so it's a good and a bad tour story all wrapped in one.
Yeah, I like it. That's a roller coaster. It's always darkest before the dawn too. So
hey, I've told that story
cool.
many times, and it used to be a lot longer. It is a lot longer, but that's the short version because nobody really wants to hear all the other stuff that happened in between. That's for the next podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. I feel like you and I could just rap about tour stories and music and the biz and real estate for hours and hours.
Sure.
But to wrap it up, what is your long-term vision for future Dobby in terms of music and also real estate?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always liked we were talking about the nature of creative work with the time off. And so I always equated that to being seasonal work. And this is one of the things that I took with me that I really still like is I think my forecast would be creating a seasonal work habit for me that allows me to own real estate in different parts of the country, maybe different parts of the world, and be able to work in those markets harmoniously with the real estate work and with my creative work, and have them sort of play together in the sense that the spaces that you create in your life, whether they be investment properties or your personal property, they dictate the experience that you have. And I think that's one of the great things about real estate is really you're dealing with experiences, and the people you work with, you know, they want the experience out of their properties. And so whatever that experience is, I think that I would like to create more harmony with with my business and my creative goals, and do it in such a way where I'm in the parts of the world that I like to be at certain times of year. So, you know, I used to go back and forth a lot between the South and California, and at certain times of the year. And I've already developed that rhythm. So I guess my goal is to be a dual agent in that way. Like, I want to work in California and I want to work in Nashville right now, and try and line things up so that when I go and do my work in California, I'm also fulfilling some of the creative relationships that I have there, which will always be there, and then vice versa, the ones that I'm working on here in Nashville, to fulfill their you know, destiny at the same time. So I think that's kind of the picture that I'm looking at. You know, I like to travel still, so I think that if I can incorporate travel with real estate and creative work, that would be my ultimate goal, is finding that rhythm where none of them necessarily sacrifice, because they're all being done at the right times and not, you know, competing.
Yeah. That's an ambitious goal. I like it, man. That's
yeah.
It sounds like there's a team that needs to be created at some point. Team Dobby to make the multi-state real estate you know, team functioning no matter where you are. The transactions continue even if you're on the other side of the world and doing whatever it is that you're doing. That's kind of similar.
I mean, travel is uncertain. Oh, I was just going to say right now, travel is uncertain in that way. So maybe it's just a state of mind, and then not a physical journey sometimes.
Hey, it can be both at different times, right? So that's cool, man. Yeah, I have a kind of a similar ambition of, you know, I love to travel as well, and also, of course, have a lot of real estate goals. My musical goals are really focused insofar as that the more successful I am at real estate, the more time I can spend just creating and having fun creating, because that's what I love the most. Other than performing is my number one in terms of creating, but you know, you need something to perform. Being able to just spend time and travel and have different properties and have a music studio here, a music studio there, and then maybe some investment properties as a part of that property, and turning it all into one big happy business to support my lifestyle, you know? So that's kind of some overlap for sure.
It is for sure. No, I mean, you know, kind of put, it's the same thing that I was talking about. You put it, maybe more eloquently, but
no, I mean, just different words to express the same idea, I guess. But man, it was great talking with you, man. Definitely would love to have you on the show again. And whenever airfare or air travel resumes, you know, we definitely got to kick it. If you're ever down in Miami, or if I come up to Nashville, and definitely we'll link up in person and cause some havoc. So
for sure. Yeah, I've been meaning to make it down there.
Yeah, man, come on anytime. You want to plug any of your social media or anything like that?
Well, you know, as far as like creative stuff, you know, the new Sugar and Gold record is coming out hopefully this year. So sugarandgold.com is where we're going to have all that. And then my, you know, my personal Nicolas Dobbratz Instagram, I guess you can sort of see some of the work that I do, in real estate. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm Dobby, you know, Dobby the house elf. Hashtag Dobby the house elf.
Awesome, man. Well, again, great having you on, brother. I really appreciate your time, and it was a pleasure talking with you. And I'll drop all of your social media links and everything below for the people. And
yeah,
have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon, hopefully. And everybody out there, thank you for listening. This has been another fantastic episode of the Jake Fletcher Show, and we'll catch you guys next time. Sell smart, buy bold. Peace.